Good morning, Al Ingalls here at pressure-free.com. I think we are live. And I have a question for you. Are you left-handed, right-handed, or ambidextrous? Uh, I'm I'm always fascinated by what hand we use and why we use it. As a violinist, so I'm using my hands in different ways, which I think is pretty interesting. I've always wanted to do a study on violinists and trombonists in particular because for two reasons. They are using their hands in different ways. And they also, so like piano, clarinet, flute, the hands are doing the similar thing. But this is very different. Same thing with trombone. Also, we don't have frets, we don't have stops. So we have to find our notes right from the very beginning of our training. Now, professional musicians on clarinet, flute, etc., oboe, they will be changing pitch to match pitch, so changing with their lip constantly. But when you're beginning, which is why sometimes it can be really painful to hear young string players play, because you have to find every note. You have to listen carefully and find every note. My violin teacher would occasionally have us take time to, or take a bunch of time and eat with our left hand, like, or eat with our right hand. So if we were left-handed, do right. If we're right-handed, do left. I particularly remember this when we would go to orchestra camp at the University of Maine for a week. She would be on us to eat with our opposite hand. And it's interesting what you can do or not do. Think of how amazing my fingers can work, but then when I'm going to hold a utensil, like, oh, how do I do that? It's pretty interesting. My husband and I, we play double solitaire every night, or if friends are over, family, we play however many people are eating over. So after dinner, we sit on the floor and we play this very competitive game. We've played over I'm going to guess over 3,000 games since 2018 when our youngest went off to college. It was my idea to get back to playing double solitaire, which is something we did when we first knew each other. So we've been doing it. And probably about 2 months ago, I said, why don't we use our left hand instead of our right hand? Because typically we only use one hand going into the pile. So everything gets switched. How we lay out the cards is switched. So we go right to left instead of left to right. Um, how we shuffle, like you're shuffling, but then all the other things you do, you're trying to do it with your opposite hand. It's been doing it for a couple months, and it's pretty interesting to me, to both of us, watching our ability, our capacity to use this hand in a new way. And we're technically using this one in a different way too. But how quickly we are accelerating our speed, like being able to do this thing. So left-handed, right-handed, ambidextrous. I'm curious what you are. My sons are interesting. The middle son is left-handed to eat, and right, but he plays hockey right-handed and he bats right-handed and swings a golf club right-handed. My eldest and my youngest eat with their right, right with their right, but they swing left, play hockey left. Uh, so it's kind of fun to watch all of that. It's fun when you have a little one and you first put a hockey stick or a baseball bat in their hands or a tennis racket. Even a violin, like a left-hander might want to go like this. And typically everyone goes like this because both hands are doing something different anyway. But that's kind of fun to see, like what you start out on, and can you switch it up? Now my husband says, okay, now we're going to play golf left-handed, so we can just change things around. I was thinking of this too, watching the Olympics, so I'm a big fan of the Olympics, and how certain skaters do their jumps one way or the other way. Typically they're going counterclockwise, but there are some skaters who go the other way, and it kind of throws you for a minute as you're watching because you're so used to seeing them take off the other way. Uh, but it's a fascinating thing and certainly opens up brain capacity when you start playing around with doing new things with any part of your being. But hands, feet too. My body coach will often make sure that I tend to be very heavy on my right. In fact, the right side of my body is the one I'll injure the most, which is like your more masculine side. She'll have me step first with my left, like consciously take a step with my left first, going upstairs, left first, to balance the two sides of my body, which I think is interesting because all of this activity as a violinist just created so much difference in my body. Like this and overdeveloped shoulder over here. And it's just fascinating how doing an activity crafts your body or changes your body. You can see this too when you're looking at the athletes at the Olympics, the different sports. It's almost like it crafts your body a certain way because you're doing it over and over and over. What I find fascinating, bringing it to pressure free for a moment, is that I didn't realize just how much the release of the stress hormones affects our ability, our brain's capacity. Um, it's been fun to work with clients who will say, I can do this so much more easily now. What's going on? Or I can memorize things better. I tested myself once on recognition because maybe you're like me, you go to a social event, you meet somebody new, and a few seconds later you can't remember their name. Like that was me forever. I had a lot of volunteers who looked kind of similar when I was running the symphony, and I would just say, "Hi, honey," right? Because I couldn't remember their names at first. So it took me a while to like put the face in the brain, and maybe I have a little bit of that face issue. Or I used to think that actually that I have um the inability to recognize people's faces very much. I used to think that was me. So I was coaching a marketing team in Indianapolis, and I knew there were going to be about 50 to 60 people in the room. Drove down the night before. By the way, there were so many moments where I could have triggered the stress response on this trip because as I'm driving, um, the particular highway that I take to get down to Indianapolis from where I live um, is not like an interstate, but there's cars coming in and off roads, and it was full of nasty potholes. Like if I had hit one of those potholes, I'm sure I would have broken something on my wheel, right? So I'm like, going around the potholes, but just being careful to try and stay in my lane and that could have definitely triggered me. The thought that I might like wreck my car or get stuck or any of those things. And it was February, I think, when I was driving down there. So get there fine, sleep well. So that's a sign that I didn't trigger. Wake up in the morning and I thought, oh, I'll just take another look at the website of the team, just take a look at their website. And what I hadn't seen before is like I clicked on one of the buttons for staff and up popped a screen with faces and names. And I think it was about 35 of them. So I looked at it and I was so curious. I thought, okay, can I look at these names and faces? How many can I learn and memorize? I had about 45 minutes an hour before I had to go over to the conference center. I was like, how many can I learn here? And so I started doing it. I'm like looking at the name, looking at face, name, and then blocking out the names. How many can I do it? So I worked on this for a little bit. And here's another moment where I could have triggered the stress response. I get to their offices, to their big conference space. And when I walk in, the CEO goes, "Oh, Elle, I'm so glad you're here. We finished an hour early because it came in an hour early. Can you start now and give us an extra hour?" Now, for some speakers and trainers, that might kind of throw them because they had created a very specific pattern of information. This is how it's going to go. But I can accordion my information. So it's like, that's fine. We can do that. So start the event, and I like to do breakouts. Breakouts are when I will pair people up and just have them work for 10, 15 minutes on a particular thing, and then I'll come back into the main group. So started the first breakout, people came back together, and I said, would anybody like to share out what came up for them during that breakout? And this guy kind of leans forward and I go, "Oh, Jeremy, would you like to share?" And he's like, how do you know my name? I go, "Oh, you're not quite ready, but Hannah looks ready." So of the 35 people, I knew 30 of them. There were a few that I definitely got confused, either because they changed the hair color or they now had a beard. There were two men who looked so incredibly similar. It was very difficult for me to tell them apart. They could have been brothers or twins. Um, they might have been wearing a hat. So there were like about five people that I really couldn't conjure up in my head based on what I had done a couple hours previously. At um, at one of the breaks, a woman came up to me. I knew her name was Amanda, and she goes, "Oh, you don't understand. We don't know each other's names. They come in from all over the country for this weekend event of trainings and connection. Um, but a lot of them don't know each other." And so she goes, "You took the time to look and see who we were before you came in the room." She goes, "That was amazing." And honestly, there's no way I could have done that pre-pressure free because my brain would have just been so shut down in order to lodge memory correctly and then be able to retrieve it while I was giving a training. Does that make sense? Like there's all these little points in our day that will cause us to trigger the stress response that we're not even aware of. And then this functioning, like the whole outer brain is shut down somewhat. So when it's all on, I call it like we're flipping the switches on everything, and that's actually one of my tools is called flip the switch. Um, we have so much more capacity. One of my clients said, they say you can remember like 10% of something after a lecture or whatever. She goes, "Look out for me. Now I know 80%." She's so dialed in. My youngest son is like that. He remembers so much from any event, anything going on. Like he's just so because we're present and this is functioning. We talk about presence, but what presence requires is a brain that isn't on stress hormones. I actually should write that down. A presence requires is a brain not on stress hormones. That is so the key, which is why people will try to use meditation as a tool. But if you've already triggered the stress response, that meditation is what I call a recovery tool. It's really helpful if you triggered the stress response. It can also be a wonderful part of your day to move into meditation. But bottom line, you could do a great meditation and then hop in your car and trigger the stress response just trying to get out into traffic. I saw that happen with a yoga person once, like had this great yoga session. And then I actually saw her face as she was trying to get out into the traffic, and she was so triggered, probably late to something, right? So it's the moment to moment things, and that's why pressure free is so powerful. Let me give you a tool before I end, and that's going to be flip the switch. So with flip the switch, you're noticing a tension, a mental tension or a physical tension. In my case, I built this tool when I was hearing myself moving into a complaint or a worry, um, something up in here, some thought up in here. And so it's like the moment those stress hormones go out, like the lights are going to turn off. So we need to keep the lights on. So I pretend there's a light switch here and I flip it up. Okay. It's not that Italian thing, whatever that is. If you're Italian, I get in trouble when I have Italians in the room. They say, "What are you doing?" I'm just pretending to flip up a switch. Again, it's emotion which can create new neural pathways, like opens up your brain because a gross motor motion is how our cortex grew from back to front. Like it's as adults, we can still use this idea of a gross motor motion, a big motion. That's different. I don't think you go around all day going like this, so it's a good one. So we flip the switch. I usually smile and I look up in my head and I say, "Caught you." That's like my slogan here for catching myself going into a pattern that's not going to be helpful, a thought that's not going to be helpful, get me what I want. So it's like, okay, flip the switch, smile. And then I move right into an empowering question. So the empowering question can be like, okay, so how can I solve this easily? How can I stay pressure free here? I use that one a ton. Like I start to move into some sort of tension. I'm like, how can I stay pressure free here? I stub my toe. I start thinking about oh, we have a flight at the end of the month, like, whatever it is, right? Flip the switch. So that's my tool for you today. Are you left-handed, right-handed, left-handed, right-handed? How do you use your hands? And is opening up your brain's capacity interesting to you? If it is, let's get together and talk because it's probably something I geek out about the most about pressure free. I mean, I love all the health benefits and all the performance benefits, but when it comes to the brain, keeping our brains healthy and keeping our brains growing and learning and expanding, that really gets me going. So I wish you a great pressure free day.